But actually, I forgot to tell you, we were talking about like our first week, what people had to say. Well, the WNBA fined me for
No! You got fined for episode 1?
Dude, they fined me $1,500. I'm like, what? I'm like, this is just the beginning. I was like, you're kidding.
Every time Sophie Cunningham opens her mouth to speak the truth, an email lands in her general manager's inbox. Every time she dares to say what thousands of fans are screaming at their televisions, the league office drafts another penalty. The WNBA, under Commissioner Cathy Engelbert, has tried to silence her. Not once, not twice, but repeatedly. But they made a fatal miscalculation. With every fine, they weren't silencing a player. They were building a superstar. Their punishments have backfired so spectacularly that they have inadvertently created one of the most powerful and authentic voices in sports media, turning nearly $3,000 in penalties into a multi-million follower media empire.
They fined her again. Sophie Cunningham has now been fined 4 times this season. She's had 4 separate fines this season, and she got fined for comments on a podcast episode about referees, and it wasn't even like it was that bad.
The situation reached a boiling point after the debut of her new podcast, Show Me Something, with Colin Cowherd's media network, The Volume. For her very first episode, she was slapped with a staggering $1,500 fine. The crime? Having the audacity to point out the one thing every single person watching the WNBA already knew: the officiating is wildly inconsistent. She didn't curse out the officials. She didn't make it personal. In fact, she went out of her way to give them grace, stating, "If I was a ref, I know I would mess up all the time. Like, I'm not saying that your job is easy." But then she delivered the simple, undeniable truth.
Man, leave Sophie Cunningham alone, Cathy Engelbert. Don't nobody care about that corrupted WNBA and those corrupted referees. Y'all want to fine her $500. Why? Because y'all feeling some type of way because you, as the commissioner, not doing your job for that bum league. You hear me? At the end of the day, y'all have so many injuries. It's crazy. Y'all have over 150 injuries this year recorded. That's insane. Something not right.
What makes the league's reaction so baffling is that Cunningham was careful and balanced in her critique. She acknowledged the immense difficulty of the job, even admitting she wouldn't be good at it herself. Her entire point hinged on consistency, the bedrock of fair play in any sport. She articulated the frustration of every player and fan, saying, "If you're on the other team and you're going to be fouling me, cool, but let me do it to you." It was a reasonable plea for a consistent standard, not a reckless tirade. Yet the WNBA treated it as a direct attack on its integrity, responding with a financial penalty that was—
If they didn't like you then, they sure aren't going to like you now. Sophie Cunningham has been making waves with the new podcast that she is now featured in, courtesy of The Volume. Sophie Cunningham letting it all out and not holding back one.
The hypocrisy of the fine becomes even more glaring when you consider the WNBA commissioner's own words. Cathy Engelbert has publicly admitted that the league is aware of problems with its officiating. She was forced to address the growing chorus of complaints, stating, "We hear the concerns. We take that input. Consistency is important. It's something we need to continue to work on." If the commissioner herself acknowledges that consistency is a problem they are actively working on, how can the league justify fining a player for pointing out that very—
And she pulls me aside and she goes, "Come here, Soph, I have to talk to you." And this was in like front of everybody. And I was like, "What did I do now?" And she just smiled and she goes, "Hey, they're going to fine you again." They're like, I was like, I even told them, I even credited them that their job was hard. I did say that. And I said that I would not.
But the podcast fine wasn't some shocking out of the blue punishment. For those who had been paying attention, it was just the latest chapter in the WNBA's ongoing battle with Cunningham's candor. To understand how we got here, we have to rewind to an incident that was, on its face, completely absurd. Before the podcast, before she was a media sensation, Sophie was hit with a $500 fine for a TikTok video. The league's heavy-handedness was on full display as they penalized her for simply participating in a viral social media trend.
On the world of what they dealing with. So you telling me if I'm getting bullied, I can't make a video about it? You gonna punish me? because I'm letting everybody know and the whole world know what's going on with me and that I'm crying out for help. So, you gonna make me the bad guy?
The video in question featured Sophie lip-syncing to Sabrina Carpenter's song Espresso using a popular audio clip. It was harmless, playful, and amassed over 1.3 million views precisely because of its relatability. The WNBA, however, saw it as an attack on the referees. Sophie's reaction to the fine was a masterclass in controlled defiance. She posted about it with the caption, "IDK, why this is funny to me." Like, okay, you got it, bud, because there's not more important things to be worried about with our league right now. She didn't just pay the fine, she used it to highlight the league's misplaced priorities, and her growing legion of fans loved her.
Is it uncommon for coaches or players to get fined in a professional league when talking about officiating? No, that's not uncommon. However, when your league is looking worse than the NFL on officiating, you know what you might ought to do? Sit down in the corner and shut the bleep up. And maybe you ought not be fining your players over it, because your officiating is dog shit.
However, the most pivotal moment in her transformation from player to folk hero came during a heated game against the Connecticut Sun. This incident cost her $900, but it earned her something far more valuable: the unwavering loyalty of Caitlin Clark's massive fan base. During the game, Clark was visibly targeted. She was poked in the eye by Dijonai Carrington and shoved to the ground by Marina Mabre. The officials seemed to let the harassment slide. Sophie Cunningham had seen enough.
It wasn't that long ago that Sophie Cunningham made this little TikTok video. And in said TikTok video, and you can see right here, this was July 23rd, she put this up and said she got fined $500 by the WNBA for criticizing the refs.
That $900 fine was for being an enforcer, for stepping in to protect the league's most valuable asset when the officials wouldn't. In a league where many veterans seemed to resent Clark's instant stardom, Cunningham became her shield. She was the only one willing to risk a penalty to stop the targeted physicality that everyone could see happening. While other players were being criticized for their cheap shots on Clark, Sophie was being penalized for defending her. The contrast was not lost on the millions of new fans tuning in, who saw Cunningham as a hero standing up against a
After 6 years of anonymity, Sophie Cunningham has suddenly become a superstar this season. Why? How did she accomplish the previously unachievable? How did she become a star in a league that seems to be allergic to star power? To her credit, Sophie Cunningham used her brain. She noticed that the path to stardom had already been cleared for her. She emulated the strategy that was utilized by Draymond Green.
When you do the math, the numbers are staggering for a professional athlete in a league with a modest salary cap of $1,500 fine for the podcast, $900 for defending her teammate, and $500 for a TikTok video. That's a documented total of $12,900. To put that in perspective, with rookie salaries in the WNBA starting around $60,000, these fines represent a significant portion of a player's income.
But I mean, here's the thing. Are the WNBA referees just kind of bad, especially this season? Yeah, they are. And I think they're just bad all around. You know, it's not even just like one player or one team or anything else like that. Like, they're just overall like really bad. But here's the thing, right? Here's what I think, and this is not just pertaining to the WNBA, but just any sports league that has some sort of referee or just some sort of refereeing official. I think after every game, there should be a post-game conference for the referees, just like how there are for the players. And like I said, not even just in the WNBA, but in all sports leagues, because some of the calls that are made, I genuinely look and I'm wondering if I'm watching the same game as the ref.
But here's where the WNBA's strategy completely and utterly backfired. Every single fine had the opposite of its intended effect. Instead of silencing her, the penalties amplified her voice 1,000 times over. After the Connecticut Sun incident where she defended Clark, her social media following exploded, reportedly jumping from around 350,000 to over 1.6 million almost overnight. The $500 TikTok fine became a viral news story, generating millions of views and
You have seen players in our league try to like toughen up Caitlyn. I know the talks that Phoenix had in the locker room of like, no, we're gonna prove her, we're gonna show her what the W really is. I'm like, what are people doing? It's just too much.
Finally, someone who gets it. Finally, someone in the WNBA who understands this thing called business.
This wasn't just luck, it was a brilliant conscious strategy. Sophie Cunningham saw a lane that was wide open, and she took it. She began emulating the playbook perfected by the NBA's Draymond Green, using a media platform to build a brand based on raw, unfiltered opinions. Draymond became a media giant not by being a quiet, compliant player, but by being an outspoken, controversial, and brutally honest analyst of the game he plays. Sophie recognized
She calls out the people out there who refuse to say Caitlin Clark is the face of the league. People who would rather say this person and that person. What about her? What about her? No, there is only one face of the WNBA. There's only one person that has casuals sitting down in front of a TV, glued to their sofa, watching the WNBA. Sophie Cunningham also.
Her rise to prominence also exposed a deeply rooted culture of fear and silence within the WNBA. When Sophie revealed the news of her $1,500 fine on her podcast, she described her teammates' reactions. They weren't surprised, they were scared. They were walking on eggshells, worried about what she would say next, and terrified that merely being associated with her honesty could get them fined too. This reaction tells you everything you need to know about the environment Cathy Engelbert's leadership has fostered. It's a workplace where professional athletes are afraid to speak honestly about the conditions of their job for fear of financial retribution from the very league that employs them.
Now, the thing about this is, now that Sophie is bringing it up, now ESPN is falling by the wayside of her and actually agreeing that there's some extra sauce going on when it comes to Caitlin Clark getting fouled, getting bullied a little bit, poked in the eye, all that stuff, man. So let's get to that. Why would you want to hurt what everybody is watching? That doesn't make sense. All right.
Sophie used her platform to confirm the ugly truth that many fans suspected was at the heart of the hostility towards Caitlin Clark. She spoke about her time with her former team, the Phoenix Mercury, and revealed the locker room talk. I know the talks Phoenix had in their locker room of like, we're going to show her what the W really is, she admitted. This was a bombshell. It was the first time an active player publicly confirmed that teams were specifically plotting to target Clark with overly aggressive play, not just as a rookie, but as something more. Sophie's insider testimony validated the concerns of millions of fans who felt Clark was being unfairly and dangerously targeted.
All she said was basically, was talking about, you know, the refs needing to protect. I'm pretty sure, was it not for her saying the refs need to protect Caitlin Clark? I'm pretty sure that's what she essentially said. The refs need to protect Caitlin Clark. And like Caitlin Clark said, you know, finally someone did it. Like she basically talked about being like the refs need to protect the face of the league.
By speaking these truths, Cunningham positioned herself as the voice of the fans. She articulated their frustrations and confirmed their suspicions. She famously said, 95% of the population who watches the WNBA agrees with me. And she was right. Every fan poll, every social media comment thread, and every sports talk show debate about the WNBA revolved around two topics: the poor officiating and the physical targeting of Caitlin Clark. While other players and coaches gave sanitized, league-approved answers, Sophie spoke for the 95% and in doing so became their champion. In the end, the story of Sophie Cunningham's fines is a masterclass in irony. WNBA Commissioner Cathy Engelbert, in her quest to control the league's narrative and punish dissent, became the accidental architect of Sophie's stardom. Each fine was meant to be a muzzle, but instead it became a megaphone. The league's attempts to push her into the background only thrust her further into the spotlight. Sophie Cunningham didn't just find her voice over the past year. The WNBA's campaign to silence her is what broadcast it to the world, turning a role player into a media mogul and proving that in the modern world of sports, authenticity, no matter the cost, is the ultimate superpower.